Relic storage, Wing C.
Effective immediately.
Wait, the room nobody comes back from?
That's the one. Enjoy.
My name is Milo Reyes, and 11 days ago my biggest professional achievement was microwaving a burrito without setting off the smoke alarm on deck 4. Then Station Human Resources, which, under the Vashterai Compact, is somehow more terrifying than it sounds, reassigned me to Relic Storage, Wing C, because nobody else wanted the shift. I want to be clear. I did not ask for this. I have a degree in supply chain logistics and a mild, reasonable fear of anything labeled ceremonial. But Earth had just signed the third integration accord, and part of the deal was that humans got meaningful placement roles, which apparently meant dusting artifacts in a room nobody with proper gills wanted to enter. Wing C smelled like static electricity and old rain. Rows of stasis cradles lined the walls, each holding some relic from a species the Compact had absorbed, outnegotiated, or quietly outlived. Most of them looked like museum junk, bent staffs, cracked helmets, a rock that a plaque insisted was the regret of King Ovrin, though nobody could tell me what that meant, and frankly I stopped asking after the third employee flinched. At the far end of the room, on a pedestal ringed with 6 separate layers of gravitic dampener coils, sat a knife. Not a big knife. A letter opener-sized knife, dull silver, with a handle wrapped in something like braided wire. A small brass plaque underneath read, in Vashterai script and a shaky handwritten Terran translation someone had clearly added as an afterthought. The gravity blade. Do not touch. Do not lift. Do not attempt during weighing ceremonies. Last incident, 340 cycles ago. Casualties for floor. Still settling. I remember reading that and thinking, dramatic. Then I got back to sorting inventory boxes because my actual job was cataloging 3 centuries of unlabeled crates, and a haunted butter knife was somebody else's problem. My supervisor was a Vashterai named Archivist Prime Selavoth, for eyes, permanently pinched expression, the general energy of someone who had never once been surprised by anything and intended to keep it that way. She gave me a tablet, a room assignment, and one instruction. Do not touch the pedestal items, she said. Especially not the blade. Got it, I said. No touching the murder knife. It is not a knife, she said. It is a certainty relic. It measures the gravitational conviction of whoever attempts to lift it. No species in recorded history has been able to raise it more than 1 millimeter from its cradle. 3 tried during the last weighing ceremony. 2 required medical extraction. 1 required a new floor. Cool, I said, already thinking about lunch. So, definitely don't touch it. Definitely, she said and left. Here is the part where I have to be honest with you because I promised myself I would not sugarcoat this. 6 hours later, sorting my 9th crate of the day, I could not find the packing tape. My hands were full of a stack of inventory forms that needed weighing down before the station's ventilation system blew them across the room, which it did constantly, because the Compact apparently never discovered doorstops. I looked around for anything flat and heavy. Nothing. The pedestal was closest. I did not think, I am going to touch the certainty relic of Vashterai prophecy. I thought, that little letter opener looking thing is probably heavier than it looks. That'll hold my papers down fine. I picked it up. It felt like picking up a pencil. Lighter than a pencil, honestly. I set it flat across my stack of forms, balanced it there so the ventilation gusts wouldn't scatter my paperwork, and kept sorting crates with my other hand, humming something I'd heard on the mess hall radio. I did not notice Archivist Prime Selavoth return. I did notice the sound she made, which I can only describe as a vacuum cleaner encountering a sock. Reyes. Her voice cracked on the second syllable. What is that on your desk? Paperweight, I said, not looking up. Found it on the pedestal. Real light, actually, good grip too. I think the handle's got some kind of rubber tread on it. Put it down. It is down. It's flat. See? I held up 2 fingers. The blade balanced flat across them like I was showing off a magic trick with a playing card. Look, it's basically weightless. I don't know why the plaque made such a big deal. I want to describe her expression, but I genuinely don't have the vocabulary. For Vashterai eyes are not built to widen the way 2 human eyes widen, and yet hers found a way.
She did not speak.
She hit a comm panel on the wall with both of her lower arms at once. Within 90 seconds, 6 more Vashterai had crowded into Wing C, and every single one of them had stopped exactly 8 feet from my desk, like there was an invisible fence there that I had somehow not been issued a copy of. "He is holding it," one of them whispered, like I couldn't hear, or like whispering made it less true. "On 2 fingers," said another, in the tone you'd use to report a small structure fire. Is he humming? I was humming. It was a good song. Overseer Drum Cade arrived next, station security, built like an industrial refrigerator with opinions, and he did not whisper anything. He planted himself in the doorway, looked at the blade balanced across my 2 fingers like a tortilla chip, and said, very slowly, "Human, set it down. Gently. Do not let it touch anything else." "It's a paperweight, man," I said. "I was going to give it back after lunch." "That is not a paperweight," Drum Cade said. "That is the single most sacred and dangerous object in the Vashterai Compact's possession, and you are currently holding it the way a child holds a cracker." I looked down at it. Little knife. Braided handle. Balance flat and easy across 2 fingers, not even wobbling. "Okay," I said. "But it's really not heavy." The room went very quiet. During the last weighing ceremony, Selavoth said, each word arriving like it cost her something, our strongest war priest attempted to lift the blade using both arms, full gravitic counterweave augmentation, and a support exosuit rated for 11 tons. He raised it 4 millimeters before his suit's servo joints failed, and he was hospitalized for a full cycle. That is the closest anyone has come. In 340 cycles. "Huh," I said. I set the blade back down on my stack of papers gently, because apparently that was a whole thing now, and picked up my inventory tablet with my free hand.
Weird design flaw, then.
Should probably make it lighter. Nobody laughed. I wanted on record that I thought that was a pretty good joke. Within the hour, Ambassador Ilex Corathene had been pulled out of an unrelated trade summit and physically walked into Wing C, robes still half-fastened, an aide trailing behind holding what I can only assume was an emergency mediation kit. The ambassador took one look at the security footage playing on a wall screen, me casually flipping the gravity blade end over end while I hummed and sorted crates, and sat down on an empty storage container without being asked. "Play it again," the ambassador said. They played it again. In the footage, I balanced the blade flat across 2 fingers. Then, because my hands were full and I needed to grab a stylus, I tossed it a few inches into the air and caught it on the back of my knuckles without looking, the way you'd flip a coin absentmindedly during a boring meeting. "He is not using augmentation," the ambassador said. "No, ambassador." "He is not wearing a suit." "No, ambassador." "He appears," the ambassador said, watching me on-screen while the sacred and unliftable relic of their entire civilization spun lazily off my knuckles, bored. "Yes, ambassador." There was a long silence. Then the ambassador asked to speak with me directly, which is how I ended up sitting across from an actual foreign dignitary while still holding a half-eaten protein bar, because nobody had told me lunch was canceled. "Mr. Reyes," the ambassador said, folding all 4 hands together in what I now know is a Vashterai gesture of extreme diplomatic restraint. "Do you understand what you're holding?" "A knife?" I said. "I mean, I thought it was a letter opener. Honestly, the shape's kind of... It is called the gravity blade, because it does not measure weight. It measures conviction. Our histories say it was forged so that no being who doubted their own strength could ever lift it, that only someone who did not know how to be afraid of it could raise it at all." I chewed my protein bar and thought about that for a second. "So it's not that it's heavy," I said. "It's that everybody who's ever picked it up knew how heavy it was supposed to be." The ambassador went very still. "Explain." "Look, man, I didn't know the story. Nobody told me it was supposed to crush war priests. I thought it was a paperweight. If you told me first, sure, maybe I'd have flinched too, tensed up, tried to lift it like it was going to fight back. But I just picked it up like it was a pencil because as far as I knew, it was basically a pencil." There is footage. I've since watched it because apparently it went semi-viral across 3 Vashterai news networks, of Ambassador Ilex Corathene putting both faces in both sets of hands. Not out of horror. Out of something closer to what I can only describe as exhausted, cosmic irony. 340 cycles, the ambassador said, mostly to themselves. Our greatest warriors trained their entire lives to prove they were worthy of lifting it. And the one being who could was simply unaware that it was hard. I mean, I could go back to being aware, I offered, if that helps. It does not help, Mr. Reyes. What happened next, in the interest of the strong ending you specifically requested, is this. The Compact convened an emergency council, reviewed 3 centuries of weighing ceremony records, and quietly amended their sacred texts to include a footnote acknowledging that the prophecy had never actually said the blade's bearer needed to be Vashterai, augmented, or even aware of the stakes. Only unafraid. Humanity, it turned out, was extremely good at being unafraid of things it didn't understand were dangerous, largely because nobody had briefed us in advance. I was given a formal title, Custodian of the Gravity Blade, First of Earth. There was a small ceremony. I wore a rented robe. Archivist Prime Selavoth cried, or did whatever the four-eyed equivalent of crying is, and told me it was the proudest moment of her 400-cycle career, watching a species so young accomplish what an empire could not. I asked if the promotion came with better parking. It did not. It came with a fruit basket, a plaque of my own, and a standing invitation to the next weighing ceremony, which I'm told will be held in 6 cycles and attended by delegations from at least 4 neighboring empires who have heard the story and, according to Dromcade, wish to observe the anomaly directly. I still don't fully understand what I did. I still think it's a really light knife. I still keep it on my desk some days when the ventilation system acts up, because, and I will die on this hill, it is genuinely an excellent paperweight. Selavoth asked me last week if I ever think about what would have happened if I'd known the truth before I picked it up. Whether I'd have hesitated. Whether I'd have failed, the way everyone else had failed, dressed in armor and conviction and 300 years of ceremony. Honestly, I told her. I think about it a lot less than you'd expect. I've got a burrito in the break room microwave and 11 more crates to sort before shift change. She didn't say anything for a moment. Then she picked up a data slate, made a small note, and for the first time since I'd met her, smiled. It was not a comfortable expression on a Vashterai face, but I've come to learn it means something like respect. I went back to sorting crates. The blade sat on my desk, flat and silver and unbothered, holding down a stack of forms against the wind, exactly like it was built to do. Nobody's told me not to touch it since.